In the rugged heart of Pine Ridge, Montana, Henderson's Hardware wasn't merely a place for nuts and bolts. For the past 4 years, it had been a sanctuary, a home to Major, a magnificent 45-pound bobcat. His tufted ears and amber eyes held a history abrush with tragedy that left him unable to return to the wild. Fate had intervened when he was just a cub rescued but forever marked by early injuries and the indelible imprint of human care. Under the watchful eyes of his devoted owners, Major blossomed into a cherished member of the hardware store family. To them, he was more than a rescued animal. He was a steadfast companion, a living testament to trust and a remarkable bridge between the untamed wilderness and the human world. Customers who stepped through the threshold were invariably captivated, their hearts warmed by the extraordinary sight of a bobcat perched attentively near the register. This is the poignant tale of Major the Bobcat, who greeted customers at the counter, and the astonishing gift he unveiled, a gift that dissolved the boundaries between wild and human, transforming ordinary encounters into moments of sheer, unadulterated magic. But before we delve into this heartwarming narrative, take a moment to tap that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring that notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories that celebrate the incredible bonds between humans and animals. The first rays of dawn pierced through the expansive plate glass windows of Henderson's Hardware, stretching long ethereal shadows across the time-worn wooden floors. Margaret Henderson had commenced her day in this familiar way for nearly 15 years, but this particular morning held a unique resonance. It marked the 4th anniversary of a day that had irrevocably altered their lives. The day Major had entered their world. The memory remained etched in her mind with startling clarity. A blustery April morning when her beloved husband Tom had burst through the back entrance of the store, his flannel shirt clinging to him, soaked by the relentless rain, as he cradled a bundle of damp blankets with the utmost care. "Maggie, you have to see this." He had uttered, his voice trembling with a mixture of excitement and profound concern. As he gently peeled back the layers of fabric, 2 luminous amber eyes peered up at them, wild and undeniably frightened, yet holding a flicker of something akin to trust. Major had been a mere 3 months old, then barely larger than a common house cat, his tiny tufted ears and oversized paws hinting at the majestic creature he was destined to become. The veterinarian had offered a grim prognosis during that initial agonizing week. Major had been discovered beside a desolate logging road in northern Montana, his mother nowhere to be found. His left front paw grotesquely mangled the unmistakable evidence of a cruel trap. The injury had healed, but it left behind a permanent, heartbreaking limp, a cruel impediment that would forever bar his return to the wild. Dr. Sarah Patterson, with her characteristic candor, had delivered the sobering truth. "He's imprinted on humans now. Releasing him would be a death sentence. And so Major had stayed. Now at the age of 4, he stood as a living, breathing testament to the extraordinary and often inexplicable bond that can blossom between human and wild animal. A gentle smile touched Margaret's lips as she unlocked the cash register, a familiar warmth spreading through her chest, knowing that within mere moments, the soft, distinctive patting of paws would announce Major's graceful descent from the apartment, upstairs his nightly sanctuary. Tom emerged from the dimly lit storage room, his once vibrant silver hair now generously streaked with salt, a testament to his 62 years. He carried a heavy box of screws, his movements bearing the careful deliberation of a man who had spent decades shaping the world with his own 2 hands. "He's already stirring," Tom remarked, a fond grin playing on his lips. Heard him yawning upstairs. As if summoned by the very mention of his name, Major appeared at the summit of the wooden stairs that led to their cozy apartment above the store. At a robust 45 pounds, He was a vision of wild elegance, tawny fur adorned with striking darker stripes, a pristine white bib that lent him an air of perpetual formality, and those extraordinary eyes that seemed to possess the uncanny ability to peer straight into the depths of a person's soul. "Morning, handsome," Margaret called out softly, her voice filled with affection. Major's tufted ears swiveled forward in acknowledgement, a silent greeting. He descended the stairs with a careful regal grace, his slight limp barely perceptible after all these years of patient healing. By the time his paws touched the ground floor, his sleepy contentment had transformed into an alert, focused attention. His workday was beginning. Major gracefully took his customary position on a custom-built platform nestled behind the counter, a testament to Tom's handiwork generously cushioned with a thick fleece that Major had unequivocally claimed as his own. From this elevated vantage point, he could observe the entire bustling microcosm of Henderson's hardware customers, thoughtfully browsing the aisles, children pressing their noses against the cool glass of the front window, and the steady rhythm of comings and goings that defined the small, tight-knit mountain town of Pine Ridge, Montana. Precisely at 7:05 a.m., the first customer of the day arrived, Mrs. Eleanor Fitzgerald, a spry octogenarian who resided 6 blocks away and held the esteemed titles of Major's first human friend and his most ardent advocate. "Good morning, dear ones," she called out, her voice carrying the unmistakable authority of her 83 years. Major, whose tail had been swaying languidly, stilled completely, his mesmerizing eyes locking onto Mrs. Fitzgerald with an intensity that often startled newcomers. But Mrs. Fitzgerald was well versed in their unique ritual. She approached the counter slowly, one hand extended in gentle greeting. "Hello, Major," she said softly, her voice laced with warmth. "I've got something for you." Major's sensitive nose twitched, detecting the familiar scent emanating from her purse. From within, Mrs. Fitzgerald produced a small, crinkled paper bag. Inside lay 3 precious pieces of freeze-dried chicken, Major's absolute favorite treat. This daily exchange had been their cherished ritual for the past 2 years, a silent testament to their extraordinary bond. But today, an unexpected deviation occurred. As Mrs. Fitzgerald offered the coveted treats, Major didn't immediately snatch them up, as was his custom. Instead, he rose gracefully on his platform, stretched with deliberate slowness, and then performed an action that stole Margaret's breath and sent a wave of profound emotion through the quiet store. He reached out with his right paw and placed it gently, almost tentatively, on Mrs. Fitzgerald's outstretched hand. It was a gesture so profoundly human, so utterly unexpected, that tears welled up in the elderly woman's eyes. "Well, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're welcome, Major. You're very welcome." Word of Major's astonishing handshake spread through Pine Ridge with the swiftness of a wildfire, igniting the small town's collective imagination. By afternoon, a steady stream of curious customers had found myriad reasons to visit Henderson's Hardware. Some genuinely needed supplies, nails, light bulbs, garden tools, while others arrived with the thinly veiled excuse of requiring a washer for a perfectly functioning faucet. Margaret watched the unfolding spectacle with growing wonder, her heart swelling with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Major, it seemed, possessed an uncanny understanding of the attention he was receiving. With each visitor who offered him a treat, he repeated the extraordinary gesture, that gentle, deliberate placement of his paw on their outstretched hand. However, Major was no indiscriminate paw shaker. His discerning nature was evident in his interactions. Children under the age of 12 received gentle sniffs of curiosity, but no paw. Strangers who approached too abruptly or spoke too loudly were met with polite attention, but nothing more. But for those he deemed worthy, the regulars, the patient souls, those who addressed him directly, rather than speaking about him as if he were an inanimate object. He offered this newfound gift, this silent acknowledgement of connection. Dr. Patterson, the kind veterinarian who had cared for Major since his rescue, stopped by around 3:00 p.m., her ostensible reason being the need for a new lock for her clinic. But her true motive was to investigate the astonishing reports she had been hearing. "Maggie, what's this I hear about Major shaking hands?" she asked, setting down her purported purchase on the counter. Major, who had been dozing contentedly on his platform, opened one golden eye at the sound of the familiar voice. Dr. Patterson had been a constant presence in his life, a figure associated with both unpleasant medical procedures and the unwavering trust of his human family. "Watch this," Margaret said, a mischievous glint in her eye, as she retrieved a treat from the jar they kept beneath the register. She handed it to Dr. Patterson. "Offer it to him, but don't rush." Dr. Patterson approached slowly, her hand extended, the treat held gently between her fingers. Major Rose gracefully sniffed delicately, and then there it was. His paw reached out and rested gently on the vet's fingers. "I'll be damned, Doctor," Patterson murmured, her voice filled with stunned amazement. That's remarkable. In all my years treating wildlife, I've never witnessed anything quite like this. He's not merely responding to conditioning. This is a conscious choice. This is communication." "What does it mean?" Tom asked, stepping over from where he had been feigning meticulous organization of brackets. Dr. Patterson gently stroked Major's paw before he withdrew it. "I think," she said slowly, her brow furrowed in thoughtful contemplation, "that Major has found his own unique way to say thank you. Animals express gratitude in countless ways, but this is extraordinary. He's utilizing what might be the most fundamentally human gesture to bridge the seemingly insurmountable gap between his wild world and ours." The news crews descended upon Pine Ridge on Thursday, a moment Margaret had been dreading with a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach ever since the Pine Ridge Gazette had picked up the captivating story. She adored Major and cherished sharing his extraordinary presence with their close-knit community. But the thought of intrusive cameras and relentless reporters invading their quiet world filled her with unease. "We could close for the day," Tom suggested, gently watching through the front window as a van emblazoned with Channel 7's prominent logo pulled into their modest parking lot. Major, with his uncanny ability to sense their emotions, seemed to mirror their tension. His tufted ears were forward alert, his entire body language conveying a sense of questioning concern. He had learned to interpret his humans' moods with remarkable accuracy. "No," Margaret decided, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "Major has never hidden from anything. We won't start now." The reporter, a young woman named Sarah Rachel, approached with an encouraging air of restraint. Margaret had spoken with her producer by phone, establishing clear ground rules: no sudden movements, no jarring flash photography, and absolutely no touching Major without explicit permission. "This is incredible," Sarah said softly, her voice filled with genuine awe as she observed Major from a respectful distance. "May I offer him something?" Margaret nodded, handing over a treat. "Let him see your intentions. Move slowly." What transpired next would be replayed on news broadcasts across the entire country, captivating hearts and sparking wonder. Sarah approached the counter, her hand extended, the treat held gently. Major rose gracefully, his golden eyes assessing her with an almost unnerving intelligence. And then, with unmistakable deliberation, he reached out his paw. But this time, he didn't merely touch her hand. He held it there, his gaze never wavering from her face, as if he were taking her measure as surely as she was taking his. The moment stretched, suspended in time, becoming something profoundly moving. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, and her voice, when she finally spoke on camera, carried the weight of genuine emotion. "This isn't just a bobcat who shakes hands," she declared, her voice thick with feeling. "This is a living bridge between worlds, a powerful reminder that empathy and communication can exist between species in ways we are only beginning to comprehend." The segment aired that Sunday night, and by Monday morning, Henderson's hardware store had transformed into an unlikely pilgrimage site. Cars bearing license plates from Wyoming, Idaho, and North Dakota filled the once quiet parking lot. Families drove for hours, their hearts filled with anticipation for the chance to witness Major's extraordinary gesture. The local Motel 6 reported being fully booked for the first time in 2 decades. But this unexpected surge of attention brought unforeseen challenges. "We can't just let everyone come up and offer him treats," Tom said, his brow furrowed with concern, as he watched a group of teenagers who seemed more intent on capturing a viral video than genuinely connecting with Major. "Look at him, he's overwhelmed." Major had retreated to the farthest corner of his platform, his body language clearly signaling distress. His ears were flattened against his head, and his pupils were dilated. Margaret felt a pang of heartache. "We need to do something. This isn't what we wanted." Dr. Patterson, who had graciously offered her expertise in managing the sudden influx of visitors, suggested a structured solution, scheduled interaction times. Twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, Major would be available for his remarkable handshakes. For the remainder of the time, a clear, respectful barrier would protect him from well-meaning but ultimately overwhelming attention. They implemented the new system within a week. Morning sessions ran from 10:00 to 11:00 a.m. and afternoon sessions from 3:00 to 4:00 p.m. Visitors could sign up for brief 5-minute appointments. The response was remarkable. People were willing to wait patiently and adhere to the rules for the precious opportunity to connect with Major. But the true test of Major's extraordinary empathy came with a little girl named Emma Rodriguez. Emma was 7 years old, born with severe autism and largely nonverbal. Her devoted grandmother, Rosa, had driven all the way from Denver after seeing the captivating news story. "Emma loves animals," Rosa explained to Margaret, her voice filled with a hopeful vulnerability. "But she's never been able to truly connect with them. She gets too excited, moves too quickly, and they always run away." It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon during one of Major's designated rest times. The store was peaceful, with only a few regular customers browsing the aisles. Margaret looked at the small, still figure of Emma, who stood beside the counter, her dark eyes fixed on Major, with an intensity that seemed to mirror his own. "We're not supposed to let anyone approach him outside of scheduled times." Tom began gently, but Margaret placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Major," she said softly, her voice carrying a gentle invitation, "what do you think?" The bobcat, who had been resting with his golden eyes half closed, suddenly became alert. He rose gracefully, stretched languidly, and then did something utterly unprecedented. He jumped down from his platform and walked to the very edge of the counter closest to Emma. The little girl didn't move, didn't utter a sound, her gaze unwavering. Major extended his paw over the counter's edge, just inches from Emma's small, outstretched hands. "It's okay, Mika," Rosa whispered, using Emma's special nickname. "He wants to meet you." Slowly, tentatively, Emma lifted her hand. The instant her fingertips brushed against Major's soft paw, something profound shifted within her small body. Her usually rigid posture softened, and her face, often a mask of careful neutrality, blossomed with the first genuine smile her grandmother had witnessed in months. For nearly 5 timeless minutes, the girl and the bobcat maintained their extraordinary connection. Major seemed to intuitively understand that this unique child required more time, more patience, a gentler approach. When Emma finally lowered her hand, she looked directly into Major's captivating eyes, something she rarely did with even her closest family members. Then she spoke, her voice a little rusty from disuse, but remarkably clear. "Thank you, Major." Rosa burst into tears, a torrent of relief and overwhelming joy. Margaret found herself reaching for Tom's hand, her own heart overflowing with emotion. Even Major seemed affected. His usual dignified composure was replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. From that day forward, Emma and her grandmother became regular visitors to Henderson's Hardware. Emma was the only child to whom Major consistently offered his paw, the only one who seemed to innately understand his need for calm, measured interaction. The seasons turned, painting the Montana landscape in hues of gold and crimson, and Major's daily routines became as much a part of Pine Ridge's rhythm as the breathtaking sunrise over the majestic Mission Mountains. Tourists still flocked to Henderson's, drawn by the now famous story of the bobcat who shook hands, but they often discovered something far more profound than a quirky roadside attraction. They found a community that had wholeheartedly embraced the extraordinary, a place where the traditional boundaries between wild and domestic animal and human had blurred into something truly beautiful. Margaret often marveled at the transformative impact Major had had on their lives. The hardware store was more successful than ever, but that paled in comparison to the deeper, more meaningful changes they had witnessed. What truly mattered was the radiant joy on Mrs. Fitzgerald's face each morning when Major offered his paw in greeting. What truly mattered was witnessing Emma's continued progress, her growing confidence blossoming with each visit. What truly mattered was the profound lesson Major had silently taught an entire town, an entire watching world. That connection transcends species, that kindness can manifest in forms we might never expect. On a crisp October evening, as the aspen trees surrounding Pine Ridge blazed with golden glory, Patterson stopped by for one of Major's regular checkups. His health remained remarkably good, but at 4 years old, he was entering the twilight of his expected lifespan. For a bobcat in captivity, "He's remarkable," she said softly, watching as Major carefully examined a feathered toy Tom had lovingly crafted for him. "When you first brought him to me injured and orphaned, I never in my wildest dreams imagined this. What he's become, what he's given people." Margaret nodded, tears always threatening to surface whenever the conversation turned to Major's inevitable mortality. "We know we're borrowing time with him. Every single day is precious." "He knows he's loved," Dr. Patterson assured her gently. "That's not always something we can say about captive wildlife, but Major knows." As if he had understood his name, Major looked up from his toy, his luminous golden eyes sweeping across the room, taking in his humans, the ones who had rescued him, raised him, and showered him with unwavering love. Then, in a gesture that needed no verbal interpretation, he rose gracefully and walked to Margaret, placing his front paws gently on her knees in a silent request to be closer. Margaret scooped him up, marveling, as always, at his complete trust, his comforting warmth. Major settled contentedly against her chest, a soft purr, rumbling a sound he reserved for these quiet, intimate moments with his chosen family. Outside, Pine Ridge prepared for the stillness of evening. The last of the day's tourists had departed, clutching their cherished photos and heartwarming stories. Mrs. Fitzgerald had made her customary evening visit, bringing Major's favorite salmon treats and receiving his grateful paw in return. Emma and Rosa had stopped by before dinner, and Emma had managed to articulate 3 complete sentences while holding Major's paw, a remarkable milestone that had left everyone beaming with pride. Tomorrow would undoubtedly bring new visitors, new connections. Some would arrive, seeking a fleeting viral moment for their social media feeds, while others would arrive, carrying heavy burdens, hoping to find a measure of solace in the extraordinary presence of this unlikely ambassador of joy. Major would greet them all with his characteristic patience, offering his unique gift to those who approached with open hearts and genuine intention. But tonight, he was simply Major, rescued, beloved, and finally truly home. His paw reached out one more time, not for a treat or a photo opportunity, but simply to touch the hand of the woman who had become his anchor in a world he was never meant to inhabit. Margaret closed her eyes, feeling the gentle weight of his paw, knowing that whatever time they had left together was a precious masterpiece of the heart, a poignant story of survival adaptation, and the mysterious, often miraculous ways love finds to bridge even the widest gaps between souls. In the morning, the familiar routine would begin anew. Customers would arrive. Major would gracefully take his position behind the counter, and one by one he would offer his extraordinary gift, a bobcat's handshake. A wild heart choosing connection, a living bridge between worlds, built one gentle touch at a time. The story of Major would undoubtedly be recounted for years to come, a local legend whispered with awe and affection. But for those who lived it day by day, it was never truly about the spectacle. It was about the quiet miracle of understanding the daily choice to see beyond the superficial differences of species and circumstance, to recognize the shared language of kindness that resonated in the gentle pressure of a wild paw on an open hand. Major had discovered his profound purpose in a world far removed from the rugged mountains where he was born. And in doing so, he had inadvertently taught everyone who crossed his path that sometimes the most profound connections arise not from our similarities, but from the courage to reach across our differences with an open paw or hand, and to say in whatever language the heart speaks, "Thank you. You matter. You are seen." As the last vestiges of light faded from the vast Montana sky, Major dozed peacefully in Margaret's arms, his work for the day complete. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to touch lives, to bridge worlds, to offer a tangible reminder that wonder still exists in a world that often forgets to look for it. The bobcat greets customers at the counter. They came to discover his secret, the unexpected currency of connection he offered. He reminded them, with each gentle paw placed in an outstretched hand, that magic is real, that connection transcends all perceived boundaries, and that sometimes the greatest gifts arrive from the most unexpected sources, wrapped not in paper and bows, but in soft fur and delicate whiskers and the gentle pressure of a wild paw choosing to trust. In Henderson's hardware store every single day served as a poignant reminder that grace could indeed walk on 4 legs, that profound wisdom could peer out through captivating amber eyes, and that the simple, unassuming act of reaching out, whether with a paw or a hand, could ripple outwards, changing the world one heartfelt connection at a time. Major's extraordinary story was far from its final chapter, but each day was already a masterpiece beautifully written in the shared, unspoken language of love between 2 vastly different species, one gentle handshake at a time. A valuable lesson. Major's story beautifully illustrates that connection, empathy, and kindness can transcend the boundaries of species. It reminds us to look beyond our differences and appreciate the unique ways in which all living beings can communicate and form meaningful bonds. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories of the incredible connections between humans and animals. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story?